Hey everyone, Chris here. Welcome back. We're out at the field. We're taking a look at the Xfly T-7. This is the new Boeing T-7 trainer, and so this is actually a really cool model. It's something totally unique that you don't see anywhere. The shape of it is really interesting. I can't say it's necessarily the prettiest airplane design necessarily, but I actually really like the looks of it. It's got kind of an F-18-esque look, but you know, maybe a bit longer nose. The Lex is a little bit smaller, but anyhow, in terms of the model itself, this is a beautiful representation. It's very scale. They've got a beautiful finish on here. Xfly has figured out how to get a smooth finish on a foam airframe because this is incredibly smooth. And so the assembly was really easy. It all just went together really quickly and easily. They've got hard mounted connectors in here, so you don't have to fiddle with wires and things of that sort. And so I've done some special programming on this one. And so I have set it up like my E-flite F-16. And so for up and away flying, we've got standard aileron elevator control, but when I set up for landing, I've got Flaperons here, and I've also got Tailerons operating in combination with the Flaperons. And that really helps on the landings. It helps to slow it down. Also, there is a reverse thrust option available here. And so at the end of this video, after we fly it and go through all my control throws, etc., I'm gonna go through the programming that I did and also show you how to set up the reverse thrust, because like for me, it was essential, because otherwise, you know, the airplane rolls so freely that I'd end up off the end of the runway every landing. So the reverse thrust really helps out. It's not a super hard stopping force, but it's just enough to help stop the airplane before it rolls off the end of the 400 feet. And so otherwise, flying the airplane, man, it really flies good. It's got great speed. It's a real high performer. Aerobatics, rolls, loops, verticals, all of that stuff, it does very, very well. I am using, these are new Turnigy heavy duty 6S 6200 packs. And these really pack a punch. This is the first time I've been using these packs. I've been testing them out for a little while, and they really pack a punch. They've been performing fantastically. And so in the model itself, it works out, I mean, it really pushes the airplane very well. Why don't we take this out to the field? We'll give you guys a flight, show you what it can do. And then from there, we'll bring it back. We'll talk through the control throws, my CG location, where the battery is located. And then we'll head into the shop and we'll go through all the programming for you. So let's get it out to the field, get some flying in, and yeah, show you what it can do. Forgot to mention, I have in here one of my version 2 CenterBurners. This is the 32mm in runner. And so I have selected the fade, flicker, fade algorithm on this. Let's light this up for you so you guys can check it out. What'd you say earlier? It really blows?
It does.
So I do like to take off with the flaperons down because otherwise it might be a little hard to rotate. You want to make sure that you get your flaperons tuned in before you do that. So as you take off, you want to carry a little bit of back pressure on the stick here as you're throttling up. It's maybe a third stick back pressure that I'll hold while it's accelerating, and then initiate rotation. So you'll see it doesn't rotate super hard. Otherwise you have the potential that it could over rotate on you because it might require extra force to lift it up. But all right, here we go. Bring flaperons up, turn them out. We'll come around, do a high-speed pass. Yeah, the sound on this thing is actually really nice. It sounds really good. Do a nice air show pass on this one. Reverse Cuban. Start low. Pulling up in the vertical. Rolling out. Going the other way. Rolling out. There we go. We're on to a 4-point roll. All right, pitching out. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm gonna slow it down to a slow speed. All right, I'm gonna come around, drop the gear, and we'll land. All right, let's take it back to the table. We'll talk through control throws, CG, where I've got everything set, and yeah, so you guys know how I'm flying the airplane. All right, so in terms of the controls, as I mentioned, I've got Flaperons and Tailerons running here. But first of all, let's talk about the aileron elevator rudder deflections that I've got here. And so for the aileron, I'm at 60% travel with 6% expo. And so that feels really good in terms of the roll rate. Now, when I drop the Flaperons, that increases to 75% rate and 10% expo because Flaperons are not a very effective roll device. And so adding in the tail here really helps to maintain the roll authority that you want when you're landing the airplane. Now, on the elevator, I am at 100% throw with 10% expo, and that feels really good. And then for the rudder, I am at 100% throw as well and 20% expo, and that expo is there mostly to desensitize the steering. And so with respect to the Flaperons, as I mentioned, it increases to 75%, and I have that rate tied to my flap switch. I like it here on the upper right side. And when we go through the programming, I'll mention all of the details on what I've got on the tails, etc. But I do want to mention there is a slight up elevator mix with the Flaperons, and so it is a minus 8% up elevator mix with the full Flaperon. There's no mix at the mid, which is not a whole lot of deflection, and then there is, of course, none when it's neutral. I do want to mention the airplane does like taking off with Flaperons to help with the rotation, but make sure that you've got all of this tuned in first before you try that. Now, that takes me to the CG, because CG is very important related to your rotation as well. And so when you look at the airplane from the bottom, I found that they've got these CG markers here. I found that actually the CG wants to be a bit further back, so the leading edge of the weapons station hard point, if you pick up the airplane at the very front of that and it's level, that's right where you want to be. The airplane feels really good there for the CG. I do want to mention too that I did actually add 1 ounce of weight to the tail. I needed to add that because of the battery I have in here. I am using the Turnigy Heavy Duty 6200 pack. It is pushed all the way back. It cannot go any further, and so it needs to go as far back as it can. I've used Roaring Top 6250s. They're a little bit lighter than these, but they still go all the way back as well. Obviously, if you're using a lighter pack, you're gonna have to adjust this, and so you know, it's all about location at the wing, CG location at the wing, and the battery placement is a result of what that placement needs to be. I think that covers it. I do want to highlight these landing gear are pretty damn cool. Yeah, the scale landing gear geeks me out, always does. But I appreciate that they spend the time to do that, because when you're talking about a scale airplane, landing gear can make or break it. And so one other thing I want to mention is I found that when I turn the airplane on and the radio on and all of that, that I actually have to flip the retract switch to initiate them. Otherwise they won't retract on the first retraction, like when I hit the switch. So I don't know if that's just based on the servo reverse or something of that sort, but something to keep in mind. All right, so let's take this into the shop. We'll go through all of the programming, show you how I accomplished all of this Flaperon, Taileron business. It's not hard, and it's not very complicated programming to get it done. Hopefully that'll be helpful to you guys. And I do have AS3X in here, so when we go through that, I will also talk through the gains that I'm using, because the airplane does respond well to the AS3X. It really stabilizes it nicely. So that's my man Brock on the camera, by the way. He's awesome. So big thank you to Brock, because honestly, I couldn't do this without him. All right, we are back in the shop now. Let's go through and talk through the programming that I did to get the Taileron and Flaperon functions. I'll also show you the AS3X gains, where I ended up there. I don't like a super aggressive gyro. Personally, I just like some nice light stabilization. So this is where I settled on to get the model to where I liked the feel of it in flight. Let's get down to the transmitter and we'll get started. All right, so first things first, let's look at the AS3X. If we just scroll over here, it will tell us the gains. So I like 1 times sensitivity. So if you are going to go with 2 times sensitivity, these are gonna have to reduce at least in half, if not more. It's probably gonna be even more. I ended up with 45 on the roll, 55 on the pitch, 65 on the yaw, and that feels really good. It gives me the stabilization that I'm looking for, and I have it set on a switch, so that way I can turn the gains off if I need to, or I can turn them on. And also have a slightly lighter amount that I was using as I was testing this out. So we'll leave that down, leave the gains going, and so now let's talk about programming. Everything that we did, it all starts one place. We have to go down into the system setup menu, and that is in the aircraft type. So I have Flaperon set here for the wing and dual elevator set for the tail. All right, so that means I'm gonna have 2 elevator servos plus 1 rudder servo, and then on the Flaperon, that just means I have 2 individual servos for the flaps, and it's got some auto mixing in there for the Flaperon function. Nothing else over here, so that is mostly it on the setup. So now from there, if you go through in here, we'll go into the flap system. That's going to be where you set your Flaperons just based on, just like flaps, right? Except that to add the tail function in there, we need to add a mix. There's mixing. So we go into mixing, and it's only taken care of through 1 single mix, and that is this right here. It is an aileron to left aileron mix. And the way that I have this set up here, you can see down here, this is the switch positions. First of all, I have assigned this mix to my flap switch, which is up here. And then down here where it says this shows the switch position, you've got 0, 1, and 2. The 0, if you scroll down here and you select this 0 until it's hatched out, that means that that mix is not active for that switch. And so then go 1 more, and now I've got, again, minus 100 on the rate, offset 0, etc. By doing that, what that does is on these 2 positions, that gives me, I want to drop these down, that gives me tail movement here. And so when we go into the monitor, you can see that when I move this, there are 4 sliders moving in there. And that's the ailerons and the tails. And I do want to mention, when you set up the configuration with the Flaperons and dual elevator, you have your automatic, the radio will set your ports for you. So it goes throttle, port 2, right aileron, port 3, right elevator, rudder, gear, and then aux 1 is left aileron, aux 4 is left elevator, and so you want to make sure that you are plugging in those servos into the proper ports in the receiver. Truthfully, that is the heart of how to accomplish this. It's not complex mixing at all. It's the proper configuration, right? Flaperon and dual elevator and in one single mix to get those tails moving, and that mix is on your flap switch. The last thing I did was I needed more roll control with the flaperons down. So I liked to fly the airplane at low rate ailerons, but I needed a bit more than low rate with the flaperons down. So in the dual rate, I've got aileron here. I set my dual rates for aileron on my flap switch. So now when I'm at flaps up, I'm at my low rate, 60% for basic flying around up and away, and then increases to 70% with 10% expo, and then for full flaperon, 75% rate, 10% expo. And so what that does is that changes the rate of the aileron throw as a whole. That includes the ailerons and the tails. That is the crux of it. I don't have a card for this, but I will try to get this downloadable on my website. I haven't been very good about keeping NX files up there, but I will definitely try to add that onto the website. But otherwise, yeah, that is the heart of it. It's not hard, and it helps to land the airplane really nicely and to help slow it down, give it a little extra lift, a little extra drag. And so, yeah. All right, so the other part of this is the reverse thrust. So when you look in the model, there is a single yellow wire. It might be under this plastic piece here. I was able to fish it out without having to lift up anything in there, but that is the signal wire. So it needs to be plugged into the signal port on your receiver in a spare channel. The yellow wire, it's gonna match up to like the orange on the spectrum colors or the white on the Futaba colors, etc. Make sure that's plugged into the right location in your receiver, and then from there we have to enter into the programming mode. There's a procedure there to get the reverse thrust. That's very important to do up front. You got to make sure that's plugged in properly, and then from there you start out, you want to make sure everything is unplugged. You go to full throttle. On the transmitter, you want to make sure your throttle cut is off, otherwise this won't work, and then you plug it in. So you're going to hear 2 beeps. All right, so that's for your calibration, and you're going to hear another set of beeps. All right, so now that's programming mode. We're gonna bring it down, bring the throttle down after 1 beep. And when it gets to 2 beeps, we're gonna go up to full throttle, and that will save the reverse thrust setting. So now we gotta reset it and make sure that it's working. So now I'm gonna throttle up, hit my reverse thrust switch. The other important piece is in here, we need to, in the system setup menu, in the channel assign menu, we go to channel assign. Whatever channel you plugged that signal wire into from the ESC, you need to assign that to whatever switch you want for your reverse thrust. So I put it up here, so when I pull forward, it is reverse thrust, and when it's all the way back, it is forward thrust. And if you find that it's operating backwards to where you want, then you go into the servo setup menu, and then scroll to the right, under reverse, you just reverse that channel in the radio, and then that will get this switch operating in the way that you want it for the reverse thrust. Yeah, I think that covers all of it in terms of programming, reverse thrust, all of that. So yeah. All right, so there we have the Xfly T-7A. This is a really fantastic flying airplane. I really like how it flies a lot. And so the programming I've done is not hard. It's really 2 things. It's that proper configuration, and it's that aileron to left elevator mix, and then setting up the switches how you want it. The reverse thrust, it really does help out quite a bit on the landing. So if that's something you are wanting to do, it's not hard to do either, but you just have to go through the process properly. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. If you'd like to see the latest build project, you can see that here And until next time, I'll see you at the field.